Growing up in Hong Kong, I loved the idea of nature. I devoured books and TV shows about anything from armadillos to whale sharks. I dreamed of making my way through unexplored forests and of discovering brand new species. But I knew more about the anatomy of an ant than I did about pitching a tent. And I could tell you about the ecosystem of the Amazon, but I couldn't name you a single tree in Hong Kong. As a kid here, it never occurred to me that I had access to nature. I grew up in places like Mongkok and Ap Lei Chau, one of the most densely populated islands in the world. Going outside was just not part of my upbringing. My parents, who encouraged my interests fully, never took me outdoors, because as with many Hong Kongers, it wasn't part of their upbringing either. In 2012, after I graduated from university, I found myself pursuing a lifelong dream. I was working with gorillas in the Central African Republic, one of the last truly wild places in the world. Near where I worked with the gorillas, there was this amazing natural clearing in the woods, the only place that we know of where you can see up to 100 forest elephants gather at once. You could spend hours on this viewing platform watching them interact and bathe and eat and play. I was there on the day that I was evacuated, about 6 months after I first got there, because a civil war broke out and sadly continues to this day. Soon after I left, a group of armed poachers came to the clearing and sprayed it with bullets, gunning down 26 elephants for their ivory. Ivory that probably ended up in Hong Kong or mainland China. In mainland China, 7 out of 10 people don't realize that ivory has to come from dead elephants. They think that the tusks fall out like teeth, painlessly. So we might be losing 33,000 elephants a year because of a simple misunderstanding of elephant biology. So all of a sudden, I found myself back in Hong Kong, in the middle of a city, with no idea what to do next. But the drive to explore, to seek the unknown, was still fresh in me, so I started doing some research about Hong Kong, and I uncovered some rather surprising facts. For instance, humans take up only a small proportion of the land, only about 25%, meaning that the rest of it, 75%, is undeveloped. An astonishing 40% of the land is protected under the country park system, which is pretty awesome. Hong Kong is actually made up of 263 islands. I mean, how many have you been to? I also found out that Hong Kong has species that are both endangered and endemic, meaning they're found nowhere else on the planet. Take Romer's tree frog. It was discovered in a cave on Llama Island in 1964, and it's our city's smallest amphibian at only about 2 centimeters long. Or Lazelle's blind snake. It was discovered by a school teacher in Pak Phu Lam in 1988, dead and washed up in a gutter. It was only seen again 4 years later, also dead and washed up in a gutter, and it's never been seen again since. In fact, this isn't even a photo of it. It's a closely related species because we don't have any photos of it. In Hong Kong, despite being 9,000 times smaller than mainland China, you can see 1/3 of all of China's bird species. And we also have mammals like leopard cats and monkeys and porcupine and deer, and that's just on land. Hong Kong has more coral species than the Caribbean, and living in those coral species are more fish species than in Hawaii, making for pretty impressive snorkeling and scuba diving. The vast majority of people simply have no idea that we share our home with such incredible biodiversity. Like I did, and many of us do, they see Hong Kong as a city that's significant culturally, historically, financially. But the truth is that this concrete jungle is an actual jungle, and its nature is just as significant, if not the best part. I mean, where else in the world can you eat at a 3 Michelin star restaurant and be on a hiking trail 20 minutes later? I was on the train the other day, and there was this group of adults cowering in fear in a corner because a tiny white moth was stuck in the compartment with us. They eventually killed it. So perhaps because our relationship with nature in our own backyard is so broken that we don't treat it so well. Just look at the pollution. Or how there's only 60 or so pink dolphins left in our waters, and we just can't seem to do anything to save them. Or how we eat over 4 times more seafood than the rest of the world does on average, a pace that is wholly unsustainable. Or how the development secretary keeps suggesting that we start building apartment blocks inside our country parks. And we may even be losing biodiversity we didn't know about in the first place. According to the World Resources Institute, scientists have a better understanding of how many stars there are in the galaxy than how many species there are on Earth. There's still so much to learn. So, Hong Kong's wild side is amazing, but no one realizes it, and we might not know much about it in the first place. And if we don't know about it, then how can we appreciate it, let alone protect it? So what's my proposed solution? People in Hong Kong need to explore more. They need to see Hong Kong in a new light. We need to have adventures outside of our comfort zones. We need to cultivate our curiosities, get our hands dirty in the wild parts of the city. We need to see it, feel it, breathe it, know it intimately. As more and more of us foster our connections with nature, I hope we can reach a tipping point. When we all love Hong Kong's nature, when we're not afraid of it, when we try to learn as much as we can about it, and we try hard to protect it. When politicians can't get away with threatening to take away our country parks, and when children who grow up hiking in our mountains and swimming in our oceans end up taking over those government positions. When we don't contribute to a trade that might make African elephants extinct in the wild by 2020 because we know better. Senegalese conservationist Baba Dioum said, "In the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught." I would like to add to that. In the end, we will only conserve, love, and understand only what we explore. It doesn't matter if you live on the 23rd floor of an apartment building. Start looking under rocks. Look into the trees. Go to your nearest park. Maybe go to Mai Po and try out bird watching for the first time, or go sea kayaking in Hoi Ha Bay. Or maybe check out that trail right behind your house that you've been meaning to hike, but you just haven't had the time to do. So, I invite all of you to grab a friend or two and go exploring next weekend.